Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 12th PIBC Peer Learning Network webinar. This is the first of 2026. Welcome. So we've been busy behind the scenes the last few months, working on some exciting new offerings for the planning community. Thank you for your patience. I am Raymond, PIBC's Director of Policy and Research, and I'll be your host and moderator today. To begin with, I'm hosting this webinar in Vancouver, located on the unceded and traditional lands of the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish peoples. And I ask you to take the opportunity to reflect about your understanding of reconciliation from wherever you are joining us today, and to stay engaged and informed in these changing times. Thank you. So we have over 360 registrants for this webinar. Thank you so much for the interest. It's always great to see the reach of the Peer Learning Network. About a quarter of the registrants are non-members, so that's really great to see. And I also want to acknowledge that the Peer Learning Network is funded by a generous contribution from the province of BC. The goal of the PLN, as I like to call it, is to support planners and practitioners, whether they're members of PIBC or not, with barrier-free resources to understand and to comply with the requirements for proactive planning. So things like housing needs reports, OCP updates, and zoning bylaw updates. And without the province, there will be no PLN. That said, PIBC is solely responsible for designing and delivering the PLN program. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of PIBC's Housing Task Force for steering this program right from the very beginning in January of 2024. The task force members are Narissa Chadwick, Erica Tiffany, Mary Storzer, and Heather Cower. So while the intelligent inventory is the topic for today, PIBC is also gearing up to deliver 2 additional resources in the near future, and I'll say more later in the webinar. But for today, this is the official launch of the PIBC Intelligent Inventory. And you may be asking why PIBC is getting into the business of artificial intelligence and who asked for an intelligent inventory. So it goes back to first principles. When Bill 44 and 47 were introduced in late 2023, every affected local government was, sprinting to comply with the requirements and the deadlines set out in the legislation. And as these plans and zoning bylaws were reviewed and amended, it became clear to many planners and practitioners that while local governments were all in the same boat, operating under the new rules of the game set out by the province, it wasn't actually easy for planners in one community to look over and see what another community is doing, especially in parts of the province where there may not be strong regional coordination or information sharing. So there was no convenient way to query OCPs or zoning bylaws to learn about what the latest and greatest practices are. And this was actually the original use case articulated by the Housing Task Force. In fact, it was Heather Cower who pointed us in this direction. And some of you may remember that last year, we put out a very crude inventory of hyperlinks to the zoning bylaws of all 180 local governments in BC. As you can imagine, a table of hyperlinks is not very useful if you're in a time crunch to do any sort of research or analysis. So that got us really motivated at PIBC to try something different and to really test out and leverage a new technology to produce something that we hope will provide benefits to members and non-member practitioners. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that this tool, the Intelligent Inventory, is something that's purpose-built for the planning community in BC today in response to provincial housing legislation. We're, of course, interested in expanding the inventory to include the Yukon in the near future. So starting today, the inventory is free to access through June, and please check out the inventory, give us feedback about what works well or what needs to be improved, and please definitely get the word out to your colleagues, including those who may not be members of PIBC but are doing planning work. This tool is for the planning community, and we want the community to embrace it and to make it even better. Now, before I introduce the consultant team behind the inventory, I want to do a quick icebreaker poll just to see who's in the room today. and what your experience and relationship is with AI. So bear with me. I'm going to start this poll. Just 3 basic questions. You should be able to see the 3 questions on your screen right now, and feel free to respond. The first question is, how often do you use AI to support your professional or academic work? The second question is, which AI tools do you use the most for work and for academia? And then third, what is your level of satisfaction with AI tools? Oh, you don't see a poll. Okay, sorry. This is the first technology glitch of the day. Let me see. Uh, all right. My apologies. So you can't see the poll? Okay. In that case, we'll skip the poll for today. It was just an attempt at an icebreaker. So without further ado, and I hope this is the only technology glitch in this webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our 2 presenters to turn on their cameras. Excellent. Okay, so pleased to have Krish Mehta, founder of NeuraCities, and Patrick Oystryk, associate principal and senior planner at MODUS. If you haven't done so already, you can browse the speaker's bios in the webinar registration page, and I will paste the link in the chat box. After the presentation, which includes a short demo, we're going to do a round of Q&A using the questions that were submitted in advance. We only have an hour today, so definitely we won't be able to get through all the questions. But that said, please feel free to submit new questions in the Q&A box. And I've also left the chat box open, but please keep in mind as you start tapping away on your keyboard that please, you can disagree without being disagreeable. We're all professional planners here, so let's uphold that standard of conduct. And finally, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on PIBC's YouTube channel by next week. So without further ado, please, Patrick, you can start the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ray. Really appreciate the intro. And yeah, hopefully we can get through the presentation and the run through without any future technological glitches. So it's a pleasure to be here today. Again, my name is Patrick Oystryk, Associate Principal and Senior Planner at MODUS. I'm going to provide a bit of a presentation here, a few slides on sort of the history of this process and what we've done over the last few months. And then I'll hand it off to Krish to do a bit of a run through of the actual technology and of the tool. So really, this work comes off the heels of an really unprecedented amount of change in how we do planning in the province. Close to about 100 BC local governments have been updating their zoning bylaws and official community plans over the last few years. Because of Bill 44 and other housing legislation that the province has pushed through. And it's presented itself as a key piece of the reason why we're doing this work, right? As Raymond explained, it's like we have been out in a lot of communities at MODUS, updating zoning bylaws, updating OCPs, and looking at precedents and doing a lot of comparisons between different communities to see what might work here, what might work elsewhere. And I believe that many of the planners on the call today have been doing that same kind of work. So that precedent research can take quite a bit of time, and it's something that we hope to solve through this tool here. Next slide, please, Krish. So we followed a bit of a process once we were hired to do this work alongside NeuraCities, where at first we conducted a strategic assessment. This was part 1 of our project. So we conducted some key informant interviews with a range of planners across the province. We also did some document sampling, so looking at various zoning bylaws and OCPs throughout the province to understand kind of their various components and how it could be kind of uploaded onto this tool. And then we also looked at various AI frameworks and scoped those out to ensure that this tool would work. And so we presented that strategic assessment to to PIBC, and they directed us to move forward with building the pilot. And so that's the second piece here is the pilot build. We used a lot of the information from our key informant interviews and our initial research to develop this pilot, which has a searchable inventory, AI reasoning, and some comparisons tools, as well as source linking. So once the pilot was built, we then did some user testing with about 45 planners and practitioners across BC. And that's led us to today, or actually first, April 1st, when there was early access for the first 100 members who registered for this webinar. And today we find ourselves here at the webinar where the launch of the inventory is now publicly accessible to all those who wish to use it. So moving into the next slide here, we held key informant interviews with approximately 13 professional planners from diverse backgrounds. So these are planners who represent various parts of the province. We also reached out to a planner from the city of Whitehorse. They all represented various roles in their organizations. So some were assistant planners, others were transportation planners. We had general managers of planning and development. So it really represented a diverse range of roles in that planning profession, and also different types of planners across different sectors. So from in the private sector and in the public sector. So we feel like we received a really good diverse amount of input into, how they use AI and whether or not they use AI. And so, the input that we received ended up being really helpful in creating this pilot. Three of the kind of key themes that resonated across the interviews was that firstly, cross-jurisdictional research can often take a long time. So any of you who have spent time looking at different OCPs or zoning bylaws from different municipalities will know that sometimes those documents are put in different formats. They might be broken up into 10 or 12 different chapters, each with their own hyperlink online. So it can be quite challenging to, open up various documents, first find those documents on a website, open them up, and then, kind of use that control find to search for a particular piece of information. So, a lot of folks were telling us that research can take a long time. It would be really great to have something that provides quick and efficient comparisons across the local governments. The second thing we heard is that, general tools don't really understand planning language. So whether that's a general kind of large language model or even a general kind of control find option in your PDF, if you search for secondary suite, it may not find accessory dwelling units, right? So there's a lot of language that we use as planners that certain tools will not understand, that there's synonyms to those, and that you can that there's corollaries there. So we needed an AI, we needed a solution that really speaks in that planning language that we're so used to as planners. And then finally, what we heard is that when using AI tools, we need to be able to source and verify that the information is valid. And so we really needed that full traceability to source the links and the information. We needed a tool that would quickly get us to that kind of source material. So building off of that, we also explored real use cases with those key informants. So some of the key use cases were cross-jurisdictional research, as we mentioned earlier. So how are other local governments handling this particular topic? An example might be, say, tree protection in the OCPs. Is there, an example from Burnaby and Coquitlam and Kelowna that we can compare quickly? So that's an example that this AI tool tries to help us out with. Another use case is policy implications. So when there's new legislation that comes out, how can we quickly understand the impacts on our own OCPs and zoning bylaws? So what does this mean for our policy? What does this mean for our regulation? Another one is regulatory language lookup. So, for instance, what exactly are the setbacks for a single detached zone in a particular community that's like mine? So we looked at that and were able to kind of define that through this tool as well. Comparisons. So much like cross-jurisdictional research, we want to understand, maybe a specific provision across various different jurisdictions. And then finally, precedent building. So it's not quite best practices, but it is certainly looking at how other communities do a particular thing, whether it's land use or whether it's a policy area within an OCP. Who's done this before? How are they doing it? And those are really the kind of key use cases that we were exploring through the development of this tool. And the tool is really meant to address some of these that we uncovered through those key informant interviews. So next, the tool is really built on those topics, on the key informant interviews. It really succeeds at three different things here. It's finding key information through natural language searches across the inventory of OCPs and zoning bylaws in communities that have over 5,000 residents in population. So it's got that inventory. You can quickly find the information. It also compares, so it can do side-by-side comparison tables across those local governments. And then finally, it can verify. So with every output that you find through this tool, there will be a link that gives you the information and allows you to quickly verify that information. And that's really important because we know that folks, when they're using AI, they can quickly kind of lose trust in that system if it hallucinates, if it's not providing that key information in the way that it's actually written in the source material. So ultimately, we do want to be very clear that, of course, this tool is not a replacement for solid planning research. As registered professional planners, we are still very much responsible for the work that we do and what we write in our reports. But this tool is really meant to kind of help us out in that. And the metaphor that I like to use is perhaps Wikipedia. We would never cite Wikipedia in our reports, but Wikipedia also has a really good range of sources at the bottom that we can click in and verify that the information on Wikipedia is coming from a valid source. So similarly, we would encourage people when they're using this tool to verify and to double check and make sure that what they're putting in their reports, what they're producing in terms of outputs is very much in that OCP, in that zoning bylaw.
Awesome.
And then I'll pass it on to Krish to finish off the presentation here. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Just introducing myself real quick. I'm Krish, founder of NeuraCities. What we are trying to do with NeuraCities is building AI solutions for the planning world and building these kind of purpose-built tools. Getting into this project, so these are basically all the features that we kind of put into this pilot and this version of the tool. And about early March, sorry, is when we started off with user testing and we had these basic things built out. And we had about 45 users who tested this, gave us feedback, and really helped us change the product towards what it is right now. What we found from that was the core approach works. All the features that we thought were needed are really needed. It's like citations, being able to generate tables, exporting those tables out, the search being through natural language. One key thing which I got from almost everybody who tested it was we want more local governments and we want more document types. So that's something which we have in store and we are planning to discuss that and see how we can grow it out. But currently it is a pilot, it is at the first version of it, and it will be ever evolving as we move this forward. What also we found was the right audience is public planners and policy researchers. Not saying that other folks cannot find this useful, but the most impactful and the most value this tool creates would be for them. Two more things which we got from the user feedback was almost 85% of them said that they would recommend this tool to their colleague, their friends in the professional world, and all of that. And 74% of them, which was unexpectedly high, said that this tool would help them save 30 minutes to 3 hours uh, doing the same kind of research. So that was a really encouraging sign that we are on the right track, and we just need to continue on it and put it out in the world. So another thing which I hear almost every single day is how is this going to be different from all the general AI tools which are out there. So we actually ran around 20 to 25 tests on comparing how the intelligent inventory does against those different tools which are out there. Some of the key ones which we found were unreliability. So a lot of the times the general AI tools, so the general AI tools are meant to respond at a lightning fast pace. So most often than not, they would skip doing a web search and they would just respond based on what they know in their training data. So that was super unreliable. A couple of other things which we saw was they went to opinion articles and LinkedIn posts and they started quoting them rather than the actual bylaw and the OCP document. And the last thing which we saw with the sources was a lot of the times it was going back to a document which was outdated. So keeping all of those things in mind, we kind of just saw what the intelligent inventory was doing, since it's a closed system where it doesn't have any access to the web or even other documents which are um, old or anything else. So from February 2026 is when we put all these documents together. So all the documents are sourced to that, and we'll have a look at it a little later. In terms of vocabulary, because we were building this with having a planning-centric mindset, we have put in a lot of different things which general AI tools would not completely understand. So like I think Patrick gave this example earlier where if you're looking for secondary suites, most often than not, the general AI tools are not going to understand that this is also an ADU and I need to search for an ADU as well. So all of these terminology mismatches which were happening, we have kind of built it into the system so that we don't go through the same problems. And the last thing which I would just cover is the closed loop system where there's no noise at all. We are just looking at those 80 local governments with their zoning bylaws and their OCP documents. So having said that, we'll shift gears and we can get into a demo mode. So this is what our tool looks like. You can go to intelligent-inventory.pibc.bc.ca and you would get to the tool. And you can just start asking questions from here. So I'm just gonna quickly put in the first question. I'm just gonna paste it so that we don't waste time. So this is the tool. When first time you come in, you'll have a tutorial to go through things. So it basically tells you this is where the sidebar is. You can start a new conversation, new search by clicking this button. This is something interesting which we have where because of cost constraints and this being a not-for-profit organization, we have put limitations on how much you can query every single day. Your credits do get refilled every day. So, and I think it should be enough to do a significant amount of research. Apart from that, there's a difference between how much credits do non-PIBC members get versus PIBC members. It's almost a factor of 2. So we can answer more questions if you have on this, but I think everybody should have a decent amount of credits. The next thing is you can look at your profile, you can change your password, the feedback form, all of those things by clicking on your icon over here. And then at the bottom, we have these different filters which can help you get to your solution quicker. I would highly recommend using these. I'll talk about the in-effect filter in a bit. So this filter, again, you can look at all the different local governments which are in there, just search them up, select which ones you want the search to be narrowed down towards, and it'll do exactly that. And then we also have a regions filter in here. And anytime if you find anything which is confusing, you can just click on the tutorial button, or you can go to the FAQ page, and you should have all the information you need. If there's something which is still missing, you can just click on your icon, go to feedback, or go to contact, and just send in that form. So I had asked it what all zone designations are there in Prince George, and it went through the entire zoning bylaw, and it found out all of these different ones. To see where this information is actually coming from, you can just go in here, and this is the exact quote from where it is. And you can click on this, and it will take you to the PDF. So these are all the different ones which are in here. And then you can also have a look at the additional sources which are not really quoted in there, but what it also looked at. And all of these are in here. So one more good thing which you guys should follow is so the next question I'm going to ask it is for Vernon. I don't want to ask it in the same one because it is conversational and it keeps the memory of whatever you asked it before in its context. So the best thing would be to create a new chat every time you're changing geographical locations, specifically geographical locations, but you can also change conversations for different kinds of queries that you're asking it. So the next thing I'm going to ask it is what zone type allows for building a storage unit in Vernon. And it goes and does that. There's another thing I want to highlight real quick. Okay, I got the answer. So it says that the indoor self-storage is permitted in the industrial zone, and then it has that in there. It also defines commercial storage as the use of open air storage equipment, goods, materials, all of those things. And then it would also give you some other information around that. And you can have a look at the sources from here. And I'm just going to give an example here. You just click on that, and it takes you exactly to the page of where it's coming from and what that section is right there. So that's how the sources work. Another good thing is you can copy this and you can paste it in any Word doc or anywhere. You can even download it as a docx. And then we also have the positive and the negative feedback. This is something which I would really encourage you guys to give. This would help us better in the tool. And we are not going to be storing any of this data. Neither is any of the queries you ask it or the thumbs up, thumbs down you give it is going to be used for training anything or having it learn anything. It's not learning anything. It'll just help us to add more things to the tool so that it's able to do and say exactly what you want it to. So the next thing I'll ask it is an analysis kind of question. I'm again going to create a new chat in here. And this time I'm going to ask it how many local governments have agro-tourism policies. So over here, it will have to go through all the different local governments which we have in the inventory, and it will scan through them and see which policies match up. I think this is a good time to talk about the in-effect filter in here. So this is an interesting thing. So during the early phase, when we were trying to put together all these documents together, we found that a lot of them were in their last stages of approval and they hadn't been adopted yet. So what we did was we added those into the inventory as well. And you can have a look at those draft documents too by just turning this off. What it does is it'll look at the draft documents along with the official documents which have been adopted. So it'll look at everything which is in there. But if you just want to keep it focused on looking at the adopted documents, you can just turn it on and leave it there. I think this is also a good time to show you guys the inventory. So these kind of questions, they do take a while because it has to go through all 80 local governments which we have and going through all their zoning bylaws, all their OCPs. So it takes a while to get it back. And that's something which we have purposefully put in. So this was a trade-off where we were debating between keeping or making it faster or having the responses be comprehensive and complete. So this would be slower than any other AI tool which you're using, and that's because it is looking at all the documents and it's able to get back all of the things. We will be working on making it faster while still maintaining the quality standards. But for now, for this particular version, this is something which is there. So looking at this analysis kind of query which we have in here, it found 8 local governments which mention agritourism policies, and it has a list of each of those. And then against it, it has where it found that particular piece. And again, you can ask it follow-up questions in here, and you can go into deeper things around what is the exact policy, what are the different things that you want to look at. I'm going to again shift gears, look at another query which I have in place. Oh, we also have these example queries down here where you can just click these if you don't know where you want to start with or just want to see how it works and all of those things. You can just click on it and it'll take you there. So this is another question which I'm going to ask it. What does the district of Saanach's zoning bylaws say about garden suites? What are the size limits and the siting requirements? So I'm going to send it this, and then I'm also going to have it compare this particular answer with, let's say, city of Surrey, and how do they differentiate it. So okay, it got the response back. It outlines specific regulations for it. These are the sizing requirements, the floor area, the roof things, and it created a table this time. So tables were something which we heard from every single key informant that we talked to. And they said we need tables most of the times, even when we find the data in the PDFs, we have to go and manually create those tables. So we built that in, and you can just copy it from here, or you can even download it as a CSV, and you can just open it up and analyze it further. It has all of these things in here. These are some of the other requirements which it found. Again, everything has a source attached to it in terms of where things are coming from. It just goes on, and then these are the additional sources which it looked at. So it can look at, sometimes I've seen it go up to around 150 sources when it's really trying to find things. But yeah, these are all the sources which it has. I'm just going to ask it a follow-up question around how does this differ from City of Surrey? And I want the differences in a table. So you noticed I didn't really put in the filters, and it's still able to get what we want. It would do that, but I would recommend some of the best practices here is putting in the filters which we have here along with the regional filters which we have. Apart from that, some of the things which I've seen what the tool does well versus what it doesn't. If you ask it a super broad query, it would look up things from many different sources and it would combine those all together and give you a response. But then if it's a very pointed question, it would do a very good job in getting that data back and doing that at a very fast pace. There are queries like the comparison queries, which we are doing in here, where we are comparing Saanich with Surrey. It would take a while to do that because it has to go through all of those two things, and it will have to create a table and analyze them and all of that. So that's again something to keep in mind. Some of the other things is I would say verify every single thing before creating a decision. We have things in place where it's not hallucinating or it's not creating things out of thin air or even looking at wrong documents. But I would still say just verify every single source which you see here. You should use this as a research tool just to get a summary of all the things which you want to look at and then actually go and verify if things are correct or not. That's something which just like highly recommend. Another thing is this tool does work on mobile phones. You can open it up and you can use it. But I would say the best the best way to use it would be on a laptop. I can maybe open up the inventory here and show you guys what that is. So I'm just going to go to the inventory here. So these are all the documents which we have in place inside of the inventory and what the tool is looking at. You can always just click on your icon in here and you can just click on inventory and it will take you to that table. You can look at all the different local governments which we have in here, the population, the region. We have the links to the documents which we are sourcing from. So you can just click on those and it will take you to that document. Similarly, when we see this to be last updated, you can even click on the in effect filter and now it has the drafts column in there and it will show you, select, this is the OCP and the zoning draft for the city of Courtney. Similarly, for all of these which we found. So this is the inventory table. This is kind of similar to what Ray talked about earlier, where you guys had the static page of all the different links in there. So this is kind of similar to that. Another thing I want to quickly highlight is the terms and privacy page. This basically talks about the liability of the tool, how you should use it, what it does, all of those things. And the privacy page is in here again. Again, just highlighting again, the data is never used to train any AI models. That's not what this use case is, and that's not what we are trying to do in here. I'm just going to go to the contact page also real quick. So you can just go in here, you can give us what feedback you want, and we'll try to respond as soon as possible. We also have the about page. You can look at what this tool is, what went behind it, what were some of the things which we looked at, and those kind of things. Coming back to our query in here, so it did its research, it found all of these things. So it's now comparing the garden suite regulations between Saanich and Surrey. Created a nice table in here. Again, it does not make up things, it just says not specified. All of the front yard regulations, other notable things which it found, and then again a summary of what the key differences are. And then the additional sources which it looked at. Again, you can just click on these and it will take you to the zoning bylaw or the OCP document. So that's kind of the end of the demo. I'm just going to take you to the home page again. This is what it would look like. And then just quickly, I'll sign out and show you guys how you can sign in as well. So just click on sign in. If you have an account, you can just log in. Otherwise, you can sign out. Put in your first name, last name, email, all of these things. And then if you are a PIBC member, just click on yes. And then you just need to select your membership type and you will be verified automatically. If you're not, then you can still use this. We'll send you a verification link. You can just click on that. As soon as you are verified, you'll be in and you can start using it. If you want to become a PIBC member, you can just click on this link here and it will take you to the membership page and you can become a member from there. So yeah, this was the demo. Really happy about this going out into the world and excited about all the different use cases you guys would be using it for. Yeah, coming back to our presentation in here, we just have a couple of more slides to go before we get into the Q&A. So we are going to be in Pentington for the PIBC conference. You can come talk to us, attend a session on June 5th at 9:30. Me and Patrick both are going to be there. And then, yeah, it is live. Super excited about this. You can go to this link here, or you can just scan this QR code. For any questions while logging in or otherwise, just write to us at contact@neuracities.com and we'll respond as soon as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Krish. Thank you, Patrick. A lot of questions in the Q&A. So before we get to that, I just wanted to quickly mention some upcoming PLN offerings. So first off, we have these housing advisory bulletins that we will be publishing very soon. We heard loudly that you wanted more resources about the fundamentals of key housing concepts. And I hope everyone will find these bulletins a good, timely resource for years to come. And we will also have a webinar to present these bulletins, and that's scheduled for May 6th. And then second, PIBC, we've joined forces with Small Housing BC to engage planners across the province about small-scale multi-unit housing. This effort is largely information gathering and exploring potential solutions suitable and appropriate to each region in the province. And Small Housing BC just completed an initial round of key informant interviews with planners in different parts of the province. So in the next phase, we'll be convening a series of regional focus groups in May, and we'll start the recruitment drive next week. So please keep an eye out in your inbox for an invitation to register. So over to the questions. So definitely a lot of questions on similar themes about how this inventory will stay fresh and up to date, and can more documents for more types of governments be included? So I'll provide a first response, and then I'll turn to Krish and Patrick. Something that we've mentioned early on is that we've taken a very intentional and in some way an incremental approach to this project, focusing on those local governments subject to the housing legislation in BC, specifically Bill 44, affecting jurisdictions with over 5,000 residents. So at this stage, what we want to do is really gauge the demand from the planning community in BC, ensure that the tool actually works and that it's reasonably reliable. And that will help us build the case to continue to evolve this tool to respond to the wider range of interests. So I think in the Q&A box, people have mentioned comprehensive community plans with First Nations, land codes, transportation plans, area plans, regional growth strategies, and even provincial legislation like the LGA. So at a minimum, we will be following the cycle of OCP and zoning reviews and updates, which is every 5 years. But there's still a lot of business rules that we'll be contemplating at PIBC, and we're happy to share those details as we develop those. And I'll let maybe Krish and Patrick talk about another feature that we are currently discussing to enable users to upload documents. Krish or Patrick?
Yeah, this was great. So that's basically what we are trying to do. It is an incremental approach, like Ray said. We started off with this being a pilot. We just want to make sure whatever we are planning to do, everything is correct, and it's actually what the users need and not just features that we like to put in. So with that, I think this is a very good starting point, and I think still early days, but we are talking about different features that we could explore with and add into this. Something like document upload, where it could be a community-driven thing where people can upload documents to this inventory, or other folks can review it and say that this is a correct document or not, or just have a managed process through it all. And with that document then becomes part of the inventory. So there are different things that we can do with this, and I think document upload is a key feature, I think, which would just make things significantly faster, and we can look into that.
Another question that was submitted in advance was, what are the potential liabilities of using AI? Maybe generally speaking, and maybe more specific to the practice of planning. Krish or Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in on this one, and I think, I mentioned it a little bit in my presentation around how, as registered professional planners, we are responsible and accountable for the work that we do. And so, I really do think that, the key thing here is not just to rely on the tool itself, but to also verify the links, to click on the links, to look at the information in the actual bylaw or in the actual document, and to verify that information, right? I think that's really key here. It's you wouldn't write a report and cite Wikipedia. So I think it's important to really go down to those source materials. It's a way to quickly access information, but it doesn't replace, that really strong kind of research and citing that we're supposed to be doing in our reports.
Thank you. Another question is, because this tool right now is designed as a closed system, where it's only querying documents that is within the inventory. What are some of the pros and cons to opening up this tool to access the wider web?
So, I mean, the pros are if there's something which has just recently happened, or there's a legislation which is up for debate, and somebody just wants to query and fast that how are we with that legislation coming in? Where do we stand? Do we have policies around that? What do we need to change? Just a quick lookup for that would be really helpful. But then I think the LinkedIn posts and the opinion articles, those are, I think, at least in my mind, those are like red flags going up, because then the inventory is just articulating what somebody else has said and not really what's like officially out there. This web search should be in there, but I think it could be like a toggle on or a toggle off feature that we could put in. If somebody wants to just go at it, look at the entire world or something, then that could be a feature that they could use.
Mm-hmm. And someone in the audience asked that they tried a couple of test questions and had some challenges getting the kind of answers that they would have expected from this kind of tool. So maybe Krish, can you tell us a little bit more how users can provide feedback if they experience something that they didn't expect in terms of the quality of the answers or any sort of technical glitches? Specifically the thumbs up, thumbs down feature.
Right.
I think that sort of feedback will be super useful to the team.
Right, for sure. So, like we said, like this is an early stage prototype. We are constantly evolving this, and there are nuances to it. So I'll just quickly log in here and show you guys what the different ways of sending us feedback would be. So I'll just go back to one of the queries which I had asked earlier. So let's say it responded with this. I did not like it. You can just click on the negative feedback button. If you want to give us some more feedback around it, we can put it in here, or you can just send it. So I'm just going to say, this was not up to the mark. The sources were wrong, or something else. And then you can just send it, and it has gone through, and we'll get a notification on the back end to kind of see what went wrong and kind of fix it. One thing to mention here is this feedback is not going to the AI models. It's coming to us as individuals, and we'll be taking corrective action and not AI models taking corrective action. So that's something to keep in mind. Another way of sending quick feedback is there's a feedback button right here. This opens up this dialog box where you can give us some general feedback of what you liked about the tool, what you did not like about the tool, just additional things which you would like us to include and all of that. This is one way. The third way would be just go to the contact page, select the type of query which you're having, and then just send the message through here, and we'll get it. And probably the last thing would be you can just send us a direct email from contact@neuracities.com, and we'll get back.
Thank you, Krish. Another person in the Q&A box asked that, is the intent of this tool to eventually evolve to help inform development applicants for pre-application screening? I think one way to look at this tool is that right now it's free to use by planners and practitioners, and obviously it's available to the general public as well. And the tool itself simply allows people to query, analyze, compare documents within the tool. And right now, the only documents in the tool or in the inventory are OCPs and zoning bylaws. So in terms of the specific application, writ large, it's wide open. It's not constrained. So if you're a landowner and you're interested in what zoning is applicable to such and such, you can definitely use this tool to query policies and regulations. And so the application of this tool is limitless in that regard. And I think one of the things that we're looking forward to in terms of feedback from the user community, from the planning community, is what are some of the additional features that you think we should consider over the long run. Obviously, again, this is an incremental approach. We're focusing on OCPs and zoning bylaws, but in addition to additional documents, policy documents, regulations, and whatnot, what other features would you find useful as part of your work or as part of your studies in academia? So we're definitely open to that sort of feedback moving forward. Another question that we did receive during the registration, a bit of a philosophical one. Where's that question here? Oh, yes. So this is an interesting one for debate. Not related to a tool specifically, but more of a general question. How will AI impact the future of planning, particularly in relation to the human workforce replacement and job loss? Who wants to take that on? Krish or Patrick?
Yeah, I can start us off if you don't mind, Krish. I think, as someone who works for a consulting firm, we've actually set up a bit of an AI committee internally at our company, and I think we've maintained a healthy dose of skepticism on AI. A lot of our work really depends on the trusting relationships that we build in the communities where we work, and that trust comes from, face-to-face interactions, community deliberation, and really strong follow-through on the promises that we make to those communities. And frankly, we don't really see AI or large language models replacing some of those basic tenets of our work. At the same time, we also know that there are tools out there now that are quickly becoming ubiquitous, right? We see AI now in our email inboxes, in our search engines, and even in some cases in public spaces. So it's wise to inquire, how we as a profession can use this tool rather than allowing it to use us. And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, maybe even a bit cheesy, but ultimately, I think there's a place in our profession for customized, closed-loop AI tools like this one that can be deployed for really narrow, focused purposes. So, much like the internet before us, we'll need to start training a new generation of planners who can understand the risks and the impacts of this kind of tool and use it for the public interest. So, that's, I think, the position that I would take on that kind of question, that there is a role for this, and it's just really about making sure that it's tailored to the specific use that we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, I just want to build on top of that. So like the way, like obviously, I am a founder of an AI company, and answering this question it just comes up so often than how I would expect it. But like the way I approach it is there are tools like these which can help make your life easier, but they're not going to do the job for you. Some aspects of just creativity or critical thinking, or like Patrick said, just going out into the world and talking to people and understanding them. Uh, AI is not never going to replace that. Like I think we are very far away from that. And I think those practices should still be instilled in folks, where you're actually talking to people and you're understanding where they're coming from, what design choices need to be made based on that. And then while creating the design, you can use certain aspects of these tools or different tools to kind of deliver what they want to, and you put in your own brain into how you're doing things. So I would just say like use these as tools or stepping stones to reach where you want to reach. And yeah, it should never replace what you're doing, or I don't think it can replace what you're doing.
Thank you. Another question that we did receive was about quote unquote best practices. And I think, Patrick, you mentioned already that this tool is definitely useful for precedence research. But the specific question was, can or should the inventory find best practices across cities?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, I think best practices kind of is a bit of a loaded term in a way, because ultimately, this tool is meant to find precedents. It's meant to really search those OCPs and zoning bylaws to show us what's being done elsewhere, or in our own community. So it'll tell you it'll tell you what other communities are doing. It'll tell you what are some of the most common approaches, or maybe you can ask it for more unique or different practices. And so best practice, maybe not so much. That's a little too dependent, I think, on your local context. But certainly in terms of finding common approaches, unique and different practices, and also just different examples of what others are doing.
I
Thank
think
you.
Ray, just building on top of that, I think you had actually asked it a question, right? Like, which is the best local government for a particular policy, and it also responded in a similar way, where best is a subjective term, and I cannot tell you what best is. Uh, so yeah, like it's all subjective and it's super contextual for best practices.
That's great. That's great. Another question, I think it was in the chat box, was the number of credits, and how does that relate to or translate to the number of queries one can input over a 24-hour period. Krish, can you sort of just give us a sort of high level sort of take on what people should expect in terms of how many queries they can input over the course of a
Yes.
workday?
Yeah, so we have put that in place because of keeping cost and this AI infrastructure in mind. Uh, it does not relate directly to one query equals one credit. It is a much more complex system than that because we have different things working and we need to be mindful of everything which is happening. And also, it's not a midnight thing where you finish something at 11:59 and on 12:01 you again have all the credits. It starts off from the point where you actually start asking it questions, and then the next day it would just get replaced on that. The next thing I would say is just giving a ballpark number here. It totally depends on if it's a simple lookup thing or if it's a comparison between four different local governments. But I would say you can go start from maybe 25 and end up with around 40 queries which you can ask with those credits. Obviously, it would vary depending on how complex or how easy the question is, but I would say that's the ballpark of how much you can do.
Excellent. So I think we have time for one more question here. I think this question, Krish, you've already answered it previously, but maybe it's worth repeating. So the question, in a nutshell, I'll try to synthesize it, is, are we planning to include a feature to allow users to upload additional plans and bylaws not currently included in the inventory? And what sort of guardrails might we introduce to ensure the quality of these documents?
Right. I think the question itself answers it, where we can put in a feature like that, but the guardrails are going to be super important. We cannot just have anybody uploading anything they want. So we'll, I think, brainstorm a little around what the guardrails should be. Should we have somebody from PIBC just managing if something has been uploaded? Is it the correct thing to upload into this inventory or not? And then somebody from PIBC can put a yes or a no thing to us, and then it becomes automatically part of the inventory. So I think that's we need to set up guardrails for sure. The most easiest and the basic one I see is somebody from PIBC just telling us yes or no. It could evolve into something even more complex where we can have multiple different community members give their thumbs up, thumbs down, and based on what the majority says, we can use that as part of the inventory or not. Or we can even create like a list of folks who are directors in their respective communities or their respective local governments, and only they are allowed to upload things. So there are different ways of going about it. We need to quantify and see which one makes the most sense. And then we can build it forward like that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we're at time. Just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, the inventory is available right now, free to access through June. Please check it out. Give us free feedback about what works well and what needs to be improved. And please, please, please get the word out to your colleagues. This tool is for the planning community, and we want the community to embrace this tool and to make it even better. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.